Most people think the biggest obstacle to paying off debt is the number printed on the bill. But the truth is, the real battle begins long before the credit card statement arrives. It starts in the quiet moments, when you're alone staring at a bank balance that doesn't reflect the future you once imagined. If you've ever felt that knot in your stomach, that mix of fear and frustration, you're not alone. And today, I want to show you a way out that doesn't begin with cutting up your credit cards, shaming yourself, or pretending everything is fine. It begins with something far more powerful: clarity. Because debt doesn't just drain your wallet, it drains your confidence, your focus, your sense of control. But here's the contrast most people never see. Debt isn't the end of your story. It can be the beginning of the chapter where everything changes. Yeah, I've seen people climb out of situations far worse than theirs simply because they chose a new direction instead of repeating the old one. And that choice, that turning point, is what you're about to experience. Before we talk strategies, you have to understand something essential. Getting out of debt isn't a math problem. It's a mindset shift. Numbers matter, of course, but they only matter after you've confronted the truth behind them. Most people avoid looking at their debts because they're terrified of what they'll find. But avoidance is the interest rate you pay without even realizing it. When you face your financial reality honestly, without excuses, without shame, you stop letting your past dictate your future. Think about this. Every person who has ever paid off a massive debt started exactly where you are now. Confused, overwhelmed, unsure of what to do first. Some even felt embarrassed, as if being in debt meant they had failed. But debt is not a character flaw. It's a situation, and situations can be changed. Your first breakthrough happens the moment you stop hiding from the numbers and start taking ownership of them. So here's where your journey truly begins. Transparency. Take a breath. Look at the real total. Commit to not turning away. When you see the truth, you finally know the distance between where you are and where you want to be. And that simple clarity, however painful at first, unlocks the power to plan, strategize, and rebuild your financial foundation with confidence. Now, once you've acknowledged the reality, the next shift is stopping the debt cycle in its tracks. Most people try to pay off debt while still adding to it. That's like trying to drain a bathtub while the faucet is wide open. To break the cycle, you need a pause, a temporary sacrifice that creates room to breathe. It doesn't mean you stop living. It doesn't mean you punish yourself. It just means you stop feeding the very thing you're trying to escape. And here's where the contrast framing becomes clear. Most people think sacrifice means suffering, but in personal finance, sacrifice means choosing a short-term inconvenience to unlock long-term freedom. That's not punishment. That's strategy. As you tighten your spending temporarily, something interesting happens. You regain control. You stop feeling like debt is chasing you and start realizing you're the one setting the pace. Now, with the faucet turned off, it's time to map out the battlefield. List every debt. Yes, all of them. Big ones, tiny ones. Ones you forgot existed. Most people think this step is about organization, but it's actually about empowerment. When you see everything in one place, debt stops being a shadow and becomes something measurable, something you can conquer piece by piece. And that visual clarity is what gives you the confidence to fight back. This is where momentum begins. And momentum, more than money, is the real engine of debt freedom. Now that you've laid everything out, the next step is choosing the order in which you'll attack each debt. And this is where most people fall into a trap. They assume the smartest strategy is to start with the highest interest rate, because mathematically that saves the most money. But if getting out of debt were purely a math problem, no one would struggle with it. The real enemy isn't the interest rate, it's the lack of emotional momentum. You don't stay in the fight because the numbers make sense. You stay in the fight because you feel progress. And that's why the most effective strategy is to start with the smallest, most achievable debt first. When you eliminate one balance quickly, something powerful happens. You feel control again. And that emotional victory fuels the next step and the next one after that. Picture this. Instead of staring at a mountain that looks impossible to climb, you see a series of small hills, each one manageable, each one proving that you're capable of more than you believed. That's what builds discipline, and discipline is what builds freedom. Financial transformation doesn't happen in a single dramatic moment. It happens in the steady rhythm of small wins. And each win rewires your mindset from "I'm stuck" to "I'm getting out." But strategy alone isn't enough. You need structure and you need visibility. Create a simple chart or board where each debt is listed with the balance, the minimum payment, and the number of months it will take to eliminate it once you're focused on it. Review it daily, not to stress yourself out, but to remind yourself why the process works. This daily visibility what turns your debt-free plan into a journey you're actively driving, not a burden you're blindly carrying. As you make progress, you'll start noticing a shift. the emotional weight begins to lift. Your confidence rises. Instead of reacting to financial problems, you start anticipating them, planning for them, overcoming them before they grow. That's the moment you begin to think differently, not like someone escaping debt, but like someone building wealth. And this shift is essential because the habits you build while paying off debt are the same habits that will eventually help you create financial independence. This brings us to the lesson few people talk about. Once you're managing your debts and gaining momentum, you must turn your energy toward building assets, even if you start small. The goal isn't to wait until you're completely debt-free before you learn to invest. The goal is to grow the mindset of someone who builds wealth while you're still climbing out. When you understand how assets work, how they put money into your pocket instead of taking it out, you start realizing that financial freedom isn't just about eliminating liabilities. It's about planting seeds that grow into long-term security. Your first asset doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be impressive. It just has to move you toward ownership. Small investment, a side income source, a skill that increases your earning power, these are the sparks that eventually become the fire of financial independence. Contrast this with the typical approach. Many people avoid learning about assets until they feel ready, but readiness doesn't come before action. It comes from action. And as your assets grow, your relationship with money changes completely. Instead of working endlessly to pay for the past, your money begins working to create your future. That's the moment you realize freedom is possible, not someday, but sooner than you think, as long as you stay consistent. So here's your call to action. Don't let this be another video you watch, agree with, and then forget. Take the first step today. Write down your debts. Choose your smallest one. Commit to eliminating it. And once you feel that first victory, keep going. Because the life you want is not built on wishes. It's built on discipline, clarity, and the courage to start. If you're ready to transform your finances and take control of your future, subscribe now, share this message with someone who needs it, and let this be the moment your story changes direction.